Small cafe in New York, busy Sunday morning, crowded with brunch customers. A young woman in a worn nurse's uniform steps inside, nervously pulling a crumpled $5 bill from her empty wallet. She orders a latte, her only meal until tonight's shift. At a nearby table, a young man in an expensive suit watches, unreadable smile on his face. They sit down together. Fate has arranged this meeting, a blind date. She has no idea. The man across from her is the CEO of a massive healthcare corporation. And this meeting will change everything. Emily Carter, 29 years old, night shift nurse at New York Presbyterian Hospital, working in the emergency department where every shift brings chaos, trauma, and people at their most vulnerable. Three defining features: blonde hair always pulled back in a practical ponytail, pale face from exhaustion and too many night shifts, and kind eyes that still show warmth despite bone-deep tiredness. Her mother is dying slowly from cancer. Her younger brother Sophie is still in high school. The entire financial burden of their small family rests on Emily's shoulders alone. Life is a constant struggle. Tiny studio apartment in Queens, meals usually consisting of cheap sandwiches from hospital vending machines, bills always threatening to overwhelm, sleep a luxury she can rarely afford. Her small ritual when exhausted, buying a $5 latte as a treat, a tiny moment of self-care, a reminder that she's human, not just a machine. That Sunday morning, she held her last $5 bill, knew she wouldn't have money until next payday, but desperately needed this moment, this coffee, this breath before diving back into survival mode. Meanwhile, a man waited at a corner table. Michael Anderson, 34 years old, CEO of Anderson Health Corporation, a multi-billion-dollar healthcare conglomerate. But today, hiding his identity on a blind date arranged by well-meaning friends tired of seeing him work constantly. He looked polished in his tailored suit, but his eyes held something deeper: wariness, past heartbreak, trust issues from relationships that wanted his money, not his heart. They spotted each other. Recognition from exchanged photos. Awkward waves. Emily approached nervously, acutely aware of her wrinkled uniform, her cheap shoes, her complete lack of sophistication compared to his obvious polish. "Emily?" Michael stood. Genuine smile. "Michael. Hi, sorry, I just got off shift. Just got off. Didn't have time to change. You look perfect. Sit, please." She ordered her latte, $4.75, her last money for the week. The barista handed her the change, a single quarter. Emily stared at it. This was literally all she had. Symbolic object number one, that crumpled $5 bill she placed on the counter, wrinkled from being folded and unfolded. Evidence of a life where every dollar matters. Every purchase requires calculation. Michael noticed everything: the worn uniform, the exhausted eyes, the way she counted her change carefully, the moment of defeat when she realized this was everything she had. Most would see poverty. Michael saw strength, courage, someone fighting impossible odds and still showing up, still trying. "Long shift?" he asked gently. 12 hours, emergency department. We had 3 traumas come in within an hour. It was intense. "You're a nurse?" "Yes, not glamorous, definitely not profitable, but someone has to do it. I think it's one of the most important jobs in the world." Emily looked surprised. Most dates seemed disappointed she wasn't something more impressive, more wealthy, more connected. "Thank you. That means a lot. So what do you do?" Michael hesitated. This was always the moment, when his identity changed everything, made people see dollar signs instead of person. "I work in healthcare, management side, nothing as important as what you do." Technically true, just incomplete. They talked for an hour. Emily about her patients, her mother, her brother. Michael about stress, pressure, the weight of decisions, both careful, both holding back, both testing waters. Authentic detail for Act 1, the coffee receipt showing 4.75 that Emily tucked into her uniform pocket, planning to save it. Evidence of this moment, this brief escape from reality. When Emily's phone buzzed, Mother needed medication urgently. Panic crossed her face. I'm so sorry. I have to go. My mom, I'll come with you if that's okay. You don't have to. I want to. And something shifted. This wasn't just a blind date anymore. This was the beginning of something neither expected. The blind date became an emergency run across Manhattan. Michael hailed a taxi, paying before Emily could protest, and they rushed to the pharmacy near her Queens apartment. Emily was mortified. This is the worst first date ever. I'm so sorry. This is the most real first date I've ever had, Michael replied honestly. Usually it's fancy restaurants and performative conversation. This is life. I like it. At the pharmacy, Emily's card declined. She stood at the counter, face flushing with embarrassment, frantically checking her banking app. I thought I had enough until Friday. The copay increased. I didn't know. Michael stepped forward smoothly. I've got it. No, you can't. Emily, let me help. Please. She wanted to refuse, pride warring with desperation. Her mother needed this medication. Her mother came first. I'll pay you back, I promise. We'll figure it out later. Your mom needs this now. They took the subway to Emily's apartment, tiny studio. Lived in but clean. Her mother sleeping on the pull-out couch, brother doing homework at a small table. Sophie looked up, protective immediately. Who's this? A friend. He helped with mom's medicine. Michael saw everything. The cramped space, the careful organization of limited resources, the love holding this struggling family together. Emily's mother woke, pale, weak, but smiled warmly. You must be the date Emily mentioned. I'm Margaret. Michael, it's nice to meet you, ma'am. You're very kind, helping with the medication. Most men would run from this chaos. I don't see chaos. I see a family taking care of each other. That's beautiful. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Emily looked at Michael differently. That evening, after Emily settled her mother with medication, she and Michael sat on a bench outside her building. She'd made sandwiches, cheap bread, basic ingredients, offered one apologetically. This isn't exactly gourmet. It's perfect. They talked for hours, real conversation, about loss. He'd lost his father young, about pressure. She understood completely, about dreams deferred and responsibilities embraced. I wanted to be a doctor, Emily admitted. But when Dad died and Mom got sick, nursing school was what we could afford. It's good work, important work. But sometimes I wonder about the what ifs. You're doing something that matters. Not everyone can say that. She looked at him, really looked, past the expensive suit, past the obvious wealth, seeing someone genuine underneath. The symbolic $5 bill reappeared when Michael found it on the ground where Emily had dropped it. He kept it, folded carefully in his wallet. Reminder of her courage, her strength, her reality. Over the following weeks, they met regularly. Coffee dates Emily could afford, park walks that cost nothing, conversations that revealed depths neither expected to find, but micro-conflict emerged. Emily's co-worker Sarah pulled her aside at the hospital. Girl, be careful. Rich guys don't date poor nurses unless they want something. They'll use you and disappear. Michael's not like that. They're all like that. Trust me. I've seen it before. Emily started watching Michael more carefully, looking for signs Sarah was right, looking for proof he'd eventually leave like everyone with money always did. One afternoon, Michael showed up at the hospital after her shift, suggested dinner at a restaurant in Midtown. Emily panicked. I can't afford. My treat, please. I want to take you somewhere nice. I don't have anything to wear to somewhere nice. You look beautiful as you are. But at the restaurant, Emily felt completely out of place. Other diners in designer clothes, menu with no prices, everything foreign and intimidating. She excused herself, nearly left through the back door. Michael found her in the hallway. Hey, what's wrong? This isn't my world. I don't belong here. We're from completely different places, Michael. This won't work. Why not? Because eventually you'll realize I don't fit. And you'll find someone who does, someone polished and educated and from your world. I don't want someone from my world. I want you, real, honest, caring you. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for your family. I know you spend your last $5 on coffee just to feel human for a moment. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. Authentic detail for Act 2, a crumpled subway ticket showing 2.75 that fell from Emily's pocket. On the back in her handwriting, one day at a time. Michael picked it up, kept it like a treasure. Emily started crying, all the stress, all the fear, all the exhaustion overwhelming. Michael held her, right there in the restaurant hallway, not caring who saw, not caring about anything except her. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. I haven't been completely honest about my job. Emily pulled back. What do you mean? I don't just work in healthcare management. I run the company, Anderson Health Corporation. I'm the CEO. The words hit like physical blows. You're a CEO? A real CEO? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because the moment people know, they change. They see money, opportunity, not me. I wanted you to see me first. Emily didn't know whether to feel honored or manipulated. I need time to think about this. I understand. She left him standing there. Took the subway home alone, mind spinning with revelations. Michael was a CEO, wealthy beyond anything she'd imagined, and he'd been pretending to be, what, normal? Someone she could actually be with? The gap between their worlds suddenly felt impossible to cross. But something in his eyes had been real. She was certain of it. The question was whether real was enough when everything else was impossibly different. The truth exploded 2 days later. Emily was working night shift when her phone lit up with messages. News articles, social media posts, photos of her and Michael together. Healthcare CEO Michael Anderson dating struggling nurse. Billionaire's new girlfriend from ER to Fifth Avenue. Anderson Health Chief's secret romance with hospital staff. Her co-workers crowded around, some congratulatory, most suspicious. You knew he was loaded? Sarah asked accusingly. I just found out. And you're still seeing him. Girl, lock that down. You'd never have to work again. The comment made Emily feel sick. That evening, Michael appeared at the hospital, serious, worried. Can we talk? They went to the empty staff break room, fluorescent lights buzzing. Smell of burned coffee and antiseptic. I'm sorry, he started. I didn't know they'd find out. I tried to keep us private. Why? Ashamed to be seen with a poor nurse? What? No, the opposite. I was protecting you from this. From the media circus. From people assuming the worst. Which they're doing anyway. Emily pulled out her phone, showed him the comments. Look, gold digger. She trapped him. How much is she getting paid? That's what people think of me now. Michael's face went dark with anger. People are idiots. They're saying I'm using you for money, that I'm a fraud, that I probably got pregnant on purpose to trap you. None of that is true. Doesn't matter. That's what everyone believes. Your world thinks I'm too low class. My world thinks I'm a traitor. Where does that leave us? Together, if you want to be. Emily laughed bitterly. Do you have any idea what my life is like? I live in a studio apartment with my dying mother and teenage brother. I work night shifts at a public hospital. I spent my last $5 on coffee for a blind date. Your life is board meetings and penthouses and decisions that affect thousands of people. We're from different planets. So, I love you. The words stopped her cold. What? I love you. I've loved you since you spent your last money on coffee and didn't complain. Since you rushed across town for your mother's medication. Since you made me sandwiches on a bench and acted like you were serving a feast. You're real, Emily. You're honest. You care about people. You're everything I need. I'm a broke nurse with a dying mother and crushing debt. I'm not some romantic story. I'm a liability. You're a miracle. Before Emily could respond, Michael's phone rang. His assistant, emergency board meeting. The corporation's major investors were threatening to pull funding if Michael didn't end the relationship publicly. They think I'm a distraction, Michael explained. Bad for business, bad optics. Dating someone so far below my economic class makes them question my judgment. See, even your own company knows this is wrong. They're wrong. The board meeting is in an hour. Come with me. What? No, I have work. Call in, please, I need you there. Against her better judgment, Emily agreed. Changed out of scrubs into the only decent dress she owned. Bought at a thrift store years ago. Felt completely inadequate next to Michael's designer suit. The Anderson Health Corporation headquarters was glass and steel, intimidating, designed to impress and overwhelm. Emily felt like a child playing dress-up in an adult's world. The boardroom was worse. 12 executives in expensive clothes, looking at her with undisguised disdain, calculating her worth and finding her lacking. Michael's board chairman spoke first. Michael, we need to discuss this situation. Her name is Emily. Fine, Emily. We need to discuss how this relationship is affecting the company's image. My personal life is private, not when you're the face of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Your choices reflect on us. Dating someone so... He paused, choosing words carefully. So obviously different creates questions about your judgment. Emily stood. I should go. Michael grabbed her hand. Stay, please. The chairman continued. We have a proposal. A generous severance. Ms. Carter agrees to end the relationship publicly. Signs an NDA. We compensate her extremely well. Everyone moves on. You're trying to pay her off. Michael's voice was dangerous. We're solving a problem. Emily is not a problem. She's the best thing in my life. One of the board members leaned forward. Be realistic, Michael. What kind of life can you have with someone from such a different background? She'll never understand your world. You'll never fit in hers. This is temporary infatuation. Don't destroy your career over it. Emily felt tears threatening. They were saying everything she'd feared, everything she'd thought. Then Michael did something nobody expected. He pulled off his custom watch, worth more than Emily made in a year, and set it on the table. Removed his designer cufflinks, placed his company phone next to them. If I have to choose between this corporation and Emily, I choose Emily, every single time. The room went silent. You're being irrational, someone said. No, I'm being honest, for the first time in years. I built this company. I've given it everything. But Emily taught me something you all forgot. There are things more valuable than market share and quarterly earnings. Things like love and loyalty, and actually caring about people beyond their utility. He pulled something from his pocket. The symbolic $5 bill Emily had spent on their first date, now pressed and preserved in a small plastic holder. This $5 bill represents more courage than every business deal in this room. Emily spent her last money to meet me. Took a chance despite having nothing. That's bravery. That's strength. That's what I want in my life. He pulled out another item. The subway ticket with 1 day at a time, written on it. Symbolic object number 2. This reminds me that life isn't about grand gestures. It's about choosing each other every single day. Emily chooses to show up for her dying mother every day, for her brother every day, for her patients every day. She chooses love and responsibility over comfort. That's the person I want beside me. The chairman stood angrily. If you don't end this relationship, we'll call a vote of no confidence. Then call it. But know this, if I leave, I'm taking my ideas with me, my patents, my vision. You'll have the building and the brand. I'll have everything that actually matters. He turned to Emily, took her hand. I'm sorry you're in the middle of this. You didn't ask for any of it. But I meant what I said. I love you, and I'm choosing you, if you'll have me. Emily looked at the room full of powerful people, at Michael risking everything, at the impossible gap between their worlds. Then she looked at his eyes and saw something her world desperately needed. Honesty, sacrifice, love. Yes, she whispered. I choose you too. They walked out of that boardroom together, past the shock, past the corporate machinery, past the life Michael had built, toward something new, something real, something worth every impossible obstacle ahead. Michael's departure from Anderson Health made every business headline. CEO walks away from billion-dollar empire for love. Healthcare leader chooses nurse over corporation. The story went viral, some praising his choice, others calling it the worst business decision in modern history. Within a week, Michael had resigned officially, sold his majority shares. walked away from the empire he'd built, started over with savings and a vision for something different. Emily was terrified. "You gave up everything for me." "I gave up things that were killing me. Work that meant nothing. People who cared about profits over humanity. I didn't lose anything important." "But what will you do now?" "Build something better, with you, if you want." They started planning. Michael had connections in healthcare. Emily had ground-level experience seeing what actually worked. Together, they envisioned something new. A healthcare startup focused on affordability and accessibility, fixing the system from inside. The transition wasn't smooth. Michael moved from his penthouse to a modest apartment near Emily's place, learned to take the subway, grocery shop, budget carefully, live like normal people. "This milk expired 3 days ago," he said one morning, sniffing suspiciously. Emily laughed. "Welcome to my world. You can still drink it for a few days after the date. Poor people rules." "That seems unsafe." "So does spending $8 on organic milk when the cheap stuff works fine." He was learning, slowly, awkwardly, making mistakes, but trying. Emily introduced Michael to her mother and brother properly, not as the CEO boyfriend, but as Michael, just Michael. Margaret was weak but clear-eyed. "You gave up a lot for my daughter." "I gained everything that matters, ma'am." Emily's been through hell, lost her father, worked herself nearly to death keeping us afloat. She deserves happiness. "Can you give her that?" "I'll spend every day trying." Sophie was harder to win over, protective, suspicious of rich men who claimed to care. "If you hurt my sister, I don't care how much money you have. I'll make your life miserable. If I hurt your sister, I'll deserve everything you do to me." They started building their healthcare startup in Emily's tiny apartment. Laptops on the kitchen table, phones ringing with potential investors, plans sketched on napkins, chaos and hope mixed together. Emily worked her nursing shifts. Michael worked on business plans. They met in the middle during rare free hours, building something together. One Saturday, they planted sunflowers outside Emily's building, small gesture, bringing beauty to the neglected space. "I always wanted a garden," Emily said, "but never had time or money or space. We have all 3 now, different than before, but better." The flowers grew, slowly, surely, like their relationship. Media attention was relentless. Cameras following them, stories written, comments cruel and kind in equal measure. Former CEO playing house with poor girlfriend. Michael Anderson's fall from grace. When love costs billions. Michael learned to ignore it. Emily struggled more. "They make me sound like I destroyed your life." "You saved my life. They just don't understand." Challenges kept coming. Michael's former board tried to compete with his new startup. His parents called constantly, begging him to come to his senses. Society judged. Critics mocked. But small victories emerged. First healthcare clinic opened in Queens, affordable care for working families. Emily and Michael cutting the ribbon together, patients already waiting, real impact, real change. "This matters more than anything I did before," Michael said. The symbolic $5 bill found permanent place in their shared apartment, framed, mounted on the wall, reminder of where they started, of what mattered. 6 months after Michael walked away from Anderson Health, his startup secured major funding. Not from traditional investors, but from smaller donors, from people who believed in affordable health care, from communities tired of choosing between medicine and groceries. "We're not building another empire," Michael told reporters. "We're building something that actually helps people." Emily stood beside him, no longer the poor nurse dating out of her league, now an equal partner, co-founder, using her nursing experience to design better systems. "I spent years in emergency rooms watching people die because they couldn't afford treatment," she said during interviews. "We're changing that. One clinic at a time." They expanded slowly, carefully, opening clinics in underserved neighborhoods, hiring nurses who understood struggling communities, keeping costs low, making care accessible. Margaret's health improved with better treatment their startup provided. Sophie got job working reception at their main clinic. The family healed together. One evening, working late in their small office, Emily looked at Michael. "Do you ever regret it, giving up everything?" He looked around. Modest office, second-hand furniture, nothing glamorous, nothing impressive by corporate standards. "Not for a second. I was dying in that boardroom, slowly, invisibly. Here I'm alive. We're making actual difference. We're together. This is everything." The sunflowers they'd planted grew tall outside every clinic, symbol of growth, of choosing differently, of life flourishing despite rocky soil. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more critics, more obstacles. But tonight, in their small apartment, Emily and Michael were simply happy, building something real, together, daily. 1 year after Michael walked away from his corporation, Emily created something that took his breath away. A simple drawing, not elaborate, just honest. 3 figures, herself, Michael, and Margaret, surrounded by sunflowers. Above them, a bright sun. Below, words in her handwriting, home. She presented it over breakfast in their still small apartment. Nothing had changed much materially. Still modest, still careful with money, still building slowly. But everything had changed emotionally. "I made this for you," Emily said, "because I realized something. You've never had a real home. Not really, just houses. But this is home." Michael's voice broke. "I've never been called someone's home before." "Well, you are. For me, for Sophie, even for Mom. You're the place we come back to. The person who makes everything feel safe." That afternoon, Michael did something he'd been planning for months. Took Emily to the first clinic they'd opened together, now thriving, filled with patients, making real difference. "I wanted to ask you something here," he said, "where everything started, where we built something real together." He pulled out a simple ring, not expensive, not flashy, just honest and beautiful and exactly right. "Emily Carter, you spent your last $5 on a blind date with a stranger. You took a chance on me when you had nothing to spare. You taught me what actually matters in life. You showed me that wealth isn't money. It's love and purpose and showing up for people every day. Will you marry me? Not because I'm wealthy. I'm not anymore. Not because I can give you luxury. I can't. But because I love you. Because I choose you. Because I want to keep building this life with you forever," Emily cried. Happy tears mixing with years of struggle and survival, and finally finding someone who stayed. "Yes, absolutely yes, I choose you too." They married 3 months later. Small ceremony at the Queen's Clinic. Patients and staff attending. Sophie walking Emily down the aisle. Margaret crying happily in the front row. Nothing fancy, everything perfect. "I promise to show up. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I promise to trust. To believe. To keep choosing us even when the world says we're crazy. I promise to be your home, your safe place, your person." The final scene unfolded naturally. Sunday morning. Their small apartment filled with sunlight. Breakfast cooking. Coffee brewing. Simple routine. Michael working on clinic expansion plans. Emily reviewing patient care protocols, building their mission together, daily, unglamorously, perfectly. "Do you ever miss it?" Emily asked. "The wealth, the power, the luxury?" Michael looked around. Their second-hand furniture, their careful budget, their modest but happy life. Never. That life was empty. This life is full. We're helping people, we're together. We built something real from nothing. I've never been happier. Even with my dying mother and teenage brother and tiny apartment, and especially with all of that. Because it's real. You're real. This love is real. That's worth more than every dollar I ever had. The framed $5 bill hung on their wall, museum piece of their origin story, reminder of courage and chance in choosing love over logic. Margaret's health had stabilized. Sophie was thriving. Their clinics were expanding, slowly, carefully, sustainably, making actual difference in people's lives. One evening, Emily and Michael sat on their fire escape. City lights sprawling below, modest view, perfect moment. "Thank you," Emily whispered, "for choosing me, for staying, for building this life with me. Thank you for teaching me what life actually is. What matters? What's worth fighting for? The sunflowers in window boxes bloomed bright, their small garden, their piece of beauty, their choice to create life in concrete. Two people from impossible different worlds, who found each other through blind chance, who chose each other despite every logical reason to walk away, who built something real from nothing but love and courage and daily choice. Family isn't about wealth or status or matching backgrounds. It's about who you choose, who chooses you back, who keeps showing up, who stays. They chose each other, improbably, impossibly, completely. And that choice was worth everything. True wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in love, purpose, and people who choose to stay when staying gets difficult. If this story touched you, subscribe to HA Stories and share what choosing love over comfort means to you.